Welcome to Global Rhythms Live, World Music and Dance Digital Concert Series presented by Ensemble Topaz.
Hi everyone, it's with great joy and honor that we present to you the second edition of Global Rhythms Live. And today we will, just like last week, continue to feature diverse performances by artists performing music, dance, and other performance traditions throughout the world. I'm Paromita, co-artistic director of Ensemble Topaz. I'm a dancer and choreographer based in Toronto, Canada. And today, myself and Mike Anklewitz will be presenting to you these amazing artists from across the world. Last week, we had with us some incredible artists from Toronto area and also southwestern Ontario here in Canada, and they performed traditional Iranian music, Egyptian belly dance, songs from around the world, and I performed Afghan dance. In today's edition, we feature world music and dance from artists based in Berlin, Germany, in Philadelphia and South Carolina, United States, and ourselves from Canada. Joining me in the studio is Mike Anklewitz, musician and composer and music director for Ensemble Topaz. And he's also involved in several other projects as well. And he's also faculty member at the Royal Conservatory of Music here in Toronto. He's also the managing technical director for Global Rhythms.
Thank you so much, Paromita, and thank you for joining us today. To us, in many ways, this concert series keeps alive our tradition as performing artists and the live forms, the ability to perform to an audience, which is so often a part of our everyday lives as performing artists. We started this series to be able to continue to perform for audiences, but also to share a bit of the artistic journeys of ourselves and these incredible artists that we're honored to present. Please visit our GoFundMe campaign page. You can see the link just in the top corner there, and please donate to support the artists. The link is right there in the screen, and we also have it in our Facebook page and the event page on Facebook. Your support keeps the artists going, especially at this time. Our first performer is Daniel Weltlinger. We're truly honored to have him here with us today. Daniel is a phenomenal violinist based in Berlin, and he comes from Australia. And in 2015, we had the pleasure of meeting him and working with him in Berlin and Prague as well on the tour and recording of my band Klez Factor's 2016 album Europa. And here's a few words about Daniel. He was born in Sydney, Australia, and is a critically acclaimed Berlin-based violinist and composer-producer. Weltlinger has long been renowned worldwide for his distinctive, warm sound and innovations within the genres of jazz manouche, jazz, Yiddish klezmer, and experimental and free improvised music. He is frequently in demand as a recording or performance capacity, often in collaboration with an array of top musicians and ensembles in a variety of different formats. He's a graduate of the Sydney Conservatorium of Music and has performed and recorded in countless major concert halls, theaters, and clubs and festivals across Australia, Europe, China, Morocco, Turkey, the US, and Israel. And he continues to collaborate with a wide range of artists and ensembles, including German Sinti guitarist and composer Lulo Reinhardt, Berlin-based Yiddish singer-actor Karsten Troika and singer-actress Sharon Browner, and the Australian multi-aria award-winning band Monsieur Camembert and the Berlin-based Turkish classical ensemble Olivin, among many others. His website is danielweltlinger.com, and here is our performances and interview with Daniel Weltlinger.
So I'd like to play quite a popular piece that I was discussing with my mother today when we speak daily on Skype. It's called Raisins and Almonds. My grandmother used to sing this to my mother when she was young. She used to sing in Yiddish. And then this is my grandfather's violin, which has really quite a remarkable story, which we might discuss after I play this first piece. But this is Raisins and Almonds. Bring this a bit closer. There you go, now you can see it. There you go. Can improvise also.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I mean, that's beautiful. Once again, we want to welcome you to Global Rhythms Live, and welcome all the way from Berlin. You are obviously not from Berlin. You speak with an Australian accent. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from living in Australia, growing up in Australia, and then ending up right now in Berlin?
Well, I've been living in Berlin now for 7 years. Um, it's a long story how I've been coming to Germany. I've actually been coming back and forth to Germany since 2004 because I have a lot of friends, um, both here in Berlin now that have been here and also on the other side of the country, in Rhineland-Pfalz, particularly in a city called Koblenz. But a lot of my friends there actually are Sinti, the Sinti and Roma. Some people know this group of people as gypsies. And I grew up with both Jewish and gypsy music in Sydney, Australia, from my grandfather, who played this violin, which I'm playing here.
Okay, hold on one second, Daniel. I screwed something up big time, so I'm gonna have to edit this. But
Yeah.
I didn't want to, but I screwed something up. So can we just start from the interview again?
Sure.
The other thing, the music was great. Everything went. I just screwed up by keeping the picture on my face too long instead of yours. Um, so we're gonna go back to just before the question.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you so much for joining us, Daniel. It's Daniel Weltlinger coming to us from Berlin, but obviously you're not from Berlin. You've got an Australian accent. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from Australia to Berlin?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Sydney, Australia. I'm born in Sydney. A very complicated family background to try and explain, but basically European Jewish family background, mostly Hungarian origins. I've had a long relationship with Germany. I've been coming to Germany for a long time, since 2004, almost for 10 years. I was coming back and forth to Germany. And 8 years ago, sorry, I've been living in Berlin for 7 years, but 8 years ago I came to Berlin on tour, and I really like the feeling of the city. It remains the same feeling. I like how laid back and artist friendly the city is. It's an irony living in the capital of Germany, which has such a terrible history, from last century, but it it actually is a different place today, very different. And I still have strong connections with Australia, but because of my upbringing, which is just very, very strongly European, culturally, musically, the Jewish traditions, also some Gypsy influences, like because I grew up with Gypsy and Jewish music as a kid from my grandfather, and just small influences. So I feel more at home in Europe. But this is my base. I think Berlin is a really good middle ground as a place to live.
So you mentioned that that was your grandfather's violin. Can you tell us the story of that violin and how you came to play it?
Sure. This violin, it comes. I'll bring it close to the screen. This violin comes from a city called Szolnok in Hungary. I made an album by this name, Szolnok, last year. I brought it out. I grew up with, violins my whole life. Since before I could talk, my grandfather was always playing violin. He always had the case open. Always had a bottle of Plonk, like Lilovitz or Johnny Walker Black or something strong to drink. Always be playing the violin. And this violin, I was just the most normal thing in the world, that it was just sitting there and he played all the time, played exactly like how I basically played, just like a song. We would play like classical pieces or like some Jewish music, a few gypsy tunes, like a mix basically. Like not too dissimilar to what you can imagine in a Hungarian restaurant with a musician there. And basically, I grew up with the story that he'd carried this violin with him from Hungary to France. I knew this story from long, long time ago. I never really thought too much about it. And when he died, I inherited this violin and another violin, which I played like really 20 years. It's here. And I always liked this other violin better, a bit more, because it's a bit easier to play. This violin's a lot darker toned. But I thought it was a shame that it was sitting in a cupboard not being played. And some years ago, I started thinking, gee, it would be nice to play this violin rather than, it's sitting in its case. And the story the story of the instrument and what it's gone through, the amazing story of this instrument, didn't really register with me so much. I wanted to make originally an album just with some pieces he played on this violin, because I've got some of his set lists with his neat handwriting and some songs he'd play for people that serenade people all the time. And then I started really thinking about the story of this instrument, what it represents. It's a real story. He literally carried this violin by foot from Hungary to France between 1920 to 1922. Originally, he went with two friends to Vienna, from Budapest to Vienna. There was a number of reasons. There was a lot of anti-Semitism in Hungary. There was numerous clauses that wouldn't let him study. There was a lot of troubles in Hungary, political upheaval, etc. And he went with two friends to Vienna, and they actually happened to see a Hitler march, a real Hitler march. I looked up the dates; it all checks out. He did, by the sound of things, actually see Hitler in the very early stages, and they fled Vienna because they saw problems, and they didn't have any identity papers, nothing. And so, because they were rejected from every country that they went to, they were just basically traveling for ages. He took the violin with him to work with. It was just a tool. And he ended up in France, because the border police didn't care less, because everyone was welcome. He lived in France for 18 years until the Second World War broke out. Then he had to escape again. He was living in Marseille, and he escaped over the Pyrenees and was caught by the Spanish cops and put in a jail. I think he had this violin with him the whole time. I think he did it. I was talking to my mum, I think, yesterday about this. It's like he took the violin with him from Hungary to France. He probably took it with him from France to Spain. Cut a long story short, he had incredible luck that the Red Cross let him escape, and he woke up in a hospital, apparently, in Algeria. And he ended up going to Morocco, and the violin was probably put in safe hiding while he was involved in French resistance and intelligence and crazy stuff. Then was in the British Army in Europe and everything. After the Second World War, he went back to Morocco and he worked there, where he met my grandmother. And unfortunately, in Morocco, there was an uprising and there was political upheaval there too in the 50s. And he had enough. He fled from one place to another and gone through all sorts of crazy stuff. And he had a daughter, my mother. My mother was born in Casablanca. And she was 7 when she came to Australia, something like this. And they they went to Australia. That's how, and this violin literally went across all these places. So it's amazing. And I took it with me to Berlin in October 2017, and by this stage I had in mind to make the story of this instrument, like in music, that the violin is a protagonist. It's really something.
Well, that's an amazing story, an amazing story of not only survival of your grandfather, but ingenuity and the ability to make music through that whole experience. Tell us a little bit about your range of music making, because I know you play more than just Jewish music. I know you're quite a great violinist, and you've studied a lot of what some people would call gypsy swing, some people call manouche jazz. Can you tell us a little bit about your story with those styles of music?
Yeah, it's like everything. It's very unintended. I would forced to describe a lot of what I do. It's extremely unintended how I've ended up playing a lot of different music. I mean, for starters, I studied a lot of classical. In this time that we're all in, where the musicians, I mean, all of us, none of us are playing live. I'm actually starting to practice a bit of classical again, which I love. I mean, I still love classical music, but I had issues with, like, not with the music. I love classical music, but I had issues with, I guess, the classical system, just because I thought from quite a young age, actually from before I started studying music seriously, like before I went, to the conservatorium and did a degree there, when I was 18, I felt that it was too removed from actual music. Like, it was too much a big competition between musicians and about status, and I thought that didn't make any sense. Like, for me, I adore music. I grew up with music from my grandfather, and to tell it's like everything's a long story, but to try and shorten it somehow. When I was first year, second year music school at the conservatorium, I put up a poster in a laundromat. And I always thought violin was really daggy in bands, because I'd seen some violin players, like, with long hair trying to play rock and violin. I just thought, oh, come on, you're just a violin player, like some classical dude trying to rock out, and it's not really happening. But I put band work on this poster, and a guy from South Africa had moved to Sydney. We made friends. He contacted me, and he introduced me to the music of Django Reinhardt. Which I heard, and I flipped when I heard this music. And little did I know, this is years later, I found out that when I went to a concert with my grandfather we went to see Stefan Grappelli, they knew the bloody same people. My grandfather used to see the Hot Club of France perform live. He had met Django, he told me. It's crazy sort of coincidences, like, years later was me finding out that he used to go to the Hot Club of France, But as I started hearing this music, and towards the end of my grandfather's life, I asked him some questions. And basically, it was a big revelation hearing gypsy swing music. It just had something in common. The way my grandfather played violin really had some similarities to Grappelli, actually. It's this cafe salon, European swing mishmash, basically. It's quite hard to describe what it is. It does have relations somehow to this Hungarian cafe music as well. There's all these different parallels, and basically, just everything progressed from there. My father passed away in 2001, which was really traumatic, and weirdly, I think it was just some months later. No, it was like half a year later. I met a guitarist from the city Koblenz in Germany named Lulu Reinhardt. And quite frankly, I didn't care less that his name was Reinhardt. I was just excited that he was a gypsy guy. I was like very happy to meet him. A guy who had brought him out, had made friends with a good friend of mine, a singer, and had invited Lulu to play this small gallery, tiny Fishka gallery in Sydney, really small. And that we made friends. And basically one thing led to the other. He invited me to come to Koblenz. I came to visit in 2004, no expectation, zero. And there happened to be a festival on that same day, like a local family festival. And I met his father and heaps of Sinti, and they directly adopted me. And just one thing led to another. Just ended up playing with these families. And it was really unplanned. So I mean, a lot of stuff I learned. It's the same with Jewish music. Like there's certain things and inflections. I never studied this. Didn't do? I haven't been reading books. I'd like to now spend some time actually reading up on it. But I just play instinctively. It's the same with gypsy swing. A lot of what I do is very instinctive. It comes from just hearing and playing along. Like this.
Well, that's terrific. Just wondering, I mean, we also know that you have an independent record label, and if you'd like to just say a couple words about that, that would be fantastic.
Sure. It's very small. It's called Rectify Records. It's just rectifyrecords.com. Like the word Rectify Records together. It's it's a nice concept. I've just got a handful of recordings on there. My trilogy. I made a trilogy with dedicated to Django Reinhardt. One is Django Reinhardt tunes and two are original compositions, and they all have like a bit of a philosophical bend. The Solnok album is on Rectify Records too. The way I do it is it's a label, but it's also what I do is I have my label, which is a website, and I in general work together with another label, and that way it just makes it easier because distribution, all this other stuff is a headache. And by working with another label together, this is fine. You can do this. You can have your site and do something in conjunction with another label. Then it just makes it clear, Like so, my last album of this Gypsy Swing trilogy is with Nero Music, and so is Solnok. And basically, you can find a number of my albums, and some of the backstory, and there's links on this label site where you can find like we can purchase it physically online, or because I know how it works today, that a lot of people just like to stream, so you can find it on all the usual platforms. Basically, it just makes it simple to find some of my stuff. And I mean, under it all, there's a bit of a humanitarian concept behind all the recordings that, to do with making the world a better place, basically, in some small way.
Well, we're hoping we can have music making the world a better place, and we'd love for you to share another piece with us. Can you tell us a little bit about it, and go ahead and just make the world a better place with some music?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking of what pieces to play. I mean, there's a million things I could play, really. Like the reason why I started with Raisins and Almonds, because it's personal. I know my mum sings this. And I didn't even know until really recently, that my grandmother sang in Yiddish all the time. It's like, what the hell? All the time at home, which is why my mum sings also. And that's one song that my mother really grew up with. And that's something you'll find across the entire world. That's a little connection, a little connection to the old Yiddish thing. And I thought for a second piece, it would be nice to play the Barcarolle from Tales of Hoffmann. And the reason why, this is on my Solnok album, but there's a reason why, is because, and this is on the album, it's really nuts. My grandfather played this from the Tales of Hoffmann. Very simple melody.
Wow, that was incredible. The story of a violin and the story of Daniel's journey through music, and also his family's journey through music. It's incredible. I find that our memories and the memories of our family can often shape our own artistic journeys in so many ways. So we're very happy to have our artists share their journeys with us. So thank you so much, Daniel from Berlin. So now we transition into our second performance, which is by myself and Mike Enkelwitz. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about us and our individual bios, but just to give a little bit of history about our work together. So we are the co-artistic directors of Ensemble Topaz. We're based in Canada right now. I am originally from India, born in India, and moved to Canada at the age of 18. Mike and I performed together in several projects around the world, such as Vignettes of Shringar in The Hague, Netherlands, Lenka Lichtenberg's Lullabies in Exile concert. By the way, Lenka is a phenomenal Czech-Canadian artist whom we will have on the show in one of our later episodes. We also performed, Mike and I also performed with the Natulal Solanki Orchestra in Rajasthan, India, and last year we did a 6-city Festival of India tour throughout Northern Ontario, and we've also performed in the United States. So once again, we're the co-artistic directors of Ensemble Topaz, and we are committed to inclusive, collaborative work across genres and disciplines, and also creating opportunities for next-generation artists. This work that we present today draws upon our work in Ensemble Topaz for the past 3 years. The music track that you will hear for this recording was recorded by our Ensemble Topaz musicians in the summer of 2019 with the help of an Ontario Arts Council recording grant. And on this track, we also have our musicians who collaborate frequently with us: Waris Fazolyar on rubab, Aris Fazolyar on tabla, Yark Dabrowski on bass, Graham Smith on guitar, and Wajma Sarur on vocals. The song is called Sabza Banalas. This is a beautiful song which talks about love and greenery and nature, but mainly love. And this is a traditional song and tune, partially with anonymous lyrics and also partially with lyrics taken from the poetry of medieval poet Baba Tahir of Iran. This is a well-loved song in both Tajikistan and Afghanistan, and in this version we present our arrangement. A few words about the dance. I have a great love of working with props in dance, and I've used props in this performance. So with that, we will go into our performance. Great. Well, thank you so much. It was our joy to bring you that performance today from us. We'd like to extend gratitude to the Ontario Arts Council and all of our local and national arts councils who continue to support their artists during this time. And of course, we extend our gratitude to all those of you who donated not only to us, but to other artists during this time. With this, we will now move on to our next performer, Nibedita Chatterjee from Charleston. Nibedita Chatterjee is an internationally renowned singer of classical and semi-classical Hindustani music. Ms. Chatterjee started singing on All India Radio as a child artist in 1975 and became a graded artist as a teenager, and consistently won the National Talent Scholarship from the Government of India between 1977 and 82. She achieved the Sangeet Visharad, the specialized master's degree in performing arts, in vocal classical music from Bhatkhande University in Lucknow, India. Currently based in South Carolina, United States, she performs widely across the United States as well as in Canada, while continuing to perform and record in India. She has been featured on prominent television channels CTVN and ATN Kolkata in India, and she released 2 CDs with Sound Wings and Golden Voice record companies in Kolkata, India, between 2001 and 2003. She has also represented Indian culture at South Carolina World Trade Center 9th annual meeting. So we're deeply honored to have her here with us today.
Good evening. Various Indian classical melodies can help heal your body and mind. So my first song will be based on Raga Ahir Bhairav. Ahir Bhairav is composed from the Tat Bhairav, and they say it's a mixture of Raga Bhairav and Kafi. That's how it makes to Ahir Bhairav. So here's the first composition in Ahir Bhairav.
Thank you.
So we're so pleased to have with us today Nibedita Chatterjee, and she has with her a wonderful accompanist on tabla, whom we are excited to meet as well.
Yes, this is Papu Haldar, Dakin Papu Haldar, and he's been accompanying tabla with me for several years now. So yeah, I'm really pleased to have him today here at the recording.
Perfect. Well, it's an honor to have you both. So we have a few questions about you and actually also about yeah, about the both of your musical journeys. So starting with you, Nivedita, can you tell us a little bit about how you began your training in classical Hindustani music and how that journey began for you?
Well, back in India, where I was born in a small town called Agartala, but it is a very great place for musicians because S.D. Burman was from that small town, and R.D. Burman, his son, they are accomplished musicians and composers later on in their life. So culturally, that small place was very, very rich. So as a result of that, we had very nice, very accomplished gurus. And I was a dancer, to be honest. I was a dancer to begin my cultural life. And when I was about 10, I started singing. And I started with my Guruji, Brojo Gopal Sinha, and continued learning from him. But within a year, I was in a competition. It was a local state-wise first, and then went to a national level. But I was just a beginner at that time, but somehow they probably found talent in me, so they awarded me with a scholarship. So once I received that, my training was very thorough, and I had to be appearing in series of uh, what should I say, series of sittings with the judges to make sure that I am progressing in my music field. So that went on for several years, and that made me going. And like I said, I had Guru Brajagopal Sinha and Guru Manoranjan Banerjee later on. With their guidance, I have gone with classical music. And that was always my favorite place of the music in Indian genre.
That's amazing. That's so wonderful to hear. Tell us a little bit about your radio experience as well, because from what I know, you also appeared several times on the radio while being in Agartala.
Yes, I again for a I would say maybe a beginner, like a year or two, I was singing, and I got selected as an artist to have my solo performances. And in the year of 1978, I was a child artist, and then after that, in 1980, I became a grade A artist and had, being the youngest that time, a great artist to perform her own session, like 6 songs at a time. And I used to do it every 3 months. They would call me and we would have recording and they would broadcast it. And I used to get paid for it. Why not? So that was very fun thing to do. And I was very much familiar with the recording studios and the musicians and the other technicians. So at a very young age, I was very familiar to them, which helped me later on in my music career, I would say. So that went on for about another 3 years, and then I got married and came to US. So and started a different way of performing music.
Amazing. What a journey. Out of curiosity, were the radio sessions, were these being done in Agartala as well? And this is very interesting to hear about the music scene in Agartala because it's a ways away from Delhi and the other urban regions where the learning and training of classical Hindustani music is big. Of course, there are centers all over India, but it's really interesting to hear about this in the northeastern region. So, was the radio work also based out of this region?
Yes, it was all India radio. So it would be broadcasted everywhere, and the selection was national too. And they had levels made for any because I think All India Radio was under central government, so they had their standards. So you cannot be just any artist, and in different region it wouldn't matter how you would perform and get selected. So they would have their own standards, and that's how you get the grades and how you're selected and performing. So I was selected as a grade and was performing with the musicians at a very young age. I was very fortunate about that. And as I said, Agartala, even though it was a small place, my university was still in Lucknow, like Vishnu Digambar University. So that is Bhatkhande University is in Lucknow. So it was all national level, everything.
Right, that's so interesting to hear. So tell us a little bit about your journey in music after you moved to the United States. Is that when you transitioned into other forms of music as well?
Actually, when I was in India, I was performing pure classical as well as Tagore songs. But other than that, the semi-classical or I would say, film songs I was not as much as familiar with them. Yeah, after coming to US, I had seen audiences with different taste and multicultural audience. So I started showing interest in other music too, and semi-classical among the Bollywood music always attracted me. So I have always sung those numbers only for the first times because I was more at ease with them than the other pop or rock ones. But then, once I started singing those songs, I got accepted, and I started having more shows and started singing the other genres also.
Great. Well, that's incredible. And tell us a little bit about the CDs that you have out.
Yes, I have two CDs. They are Bengali CDs, Tagore songs. And as I said, I sang Tagore songs in All India Radio while I was in India. But those CDs I have done while I was staying in Columbus, Ohio, the first part of my life here in US. And the first one was done by Vishwas Records, and here it was circulated by Vishwas Records in US because he was based here, and in India it was Golden Voice. I had a very nice, very accomplished arranger, Durbadol Chattopadhyay. He was my arranger, and he only was very selective about accepting newcomer to do the CD and arrange the music and all that. But once he heard me, he said, "Fine, I will do it for you." So that was great, and we spent hours in the recording studio. It was a lot of fun, lot of fun. I wish I could still do it. I was still in India and doing those, regularly. But staying in this country, I think I did whatever I could at the time, raising kids. I've been a housewife, working outside, but still I had the passion for music and performances. So that probably made me going. Thank you.
Great, wonderful, wonderful to hear. And tell us a little bit about your work with your wonderful percussionist.
So, yes, this is Papu Haldak. Papu, here you are.
It's so wonderful to be part of this group. I have started my musical journey while music is really loved by my family. And then I love music. I love listening songs and everything. But I started learning tabla when I was 13 years. Our Guruji was Dilip Roy, and that was the starting. And then after a couple of years, started playing with different singers, and then I started polishing my skill with Shantosh Kulkarni, who gave me different gharanas of tabla, where I then um, started playing, practicing, and then I enjoy music, playing with Didi. I know her. It's been a couple of years now, and then
More than that, yeah.
and we did many concert together, performance together. Yeah, I enjoy playing with her. She is amazing, and she's very talented. Yes, she is.
He too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was our honor to have you on the show, and we absolutely look forward to your second song.
My next song for this evening is based on Raga Yaman. Raga Yaman is a very romantic raga, and most of the composition created with Raga Yaman are very, very popular in Indian music. The name Yemen, they say it may have come from a Persian word, Yemen, or some other people say that it has a Vedic origin. From Raga Yamuna, it became, over the time being, to Yemen. So here is my next song based in Raga Yaman.
Hello and welcome back. We want to thank Nibedita Chatterjee, and we'd like to just remind everybody to please support our artists. please go to the GoFundMe campaign that you see in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And I'm very pleased to introduce our next performer, who's Steve Weintraub, coming to us live from Philadelphia. Steve received his dance training in Manhattan with Alvin Ailey and Eric Hawkins, among others. His career as a teacher of traditional Yiddish dance has placed him in international demand at festivals and workshops all around the world, including Klez Camp, Klez Canada, and festivals in Krakow, Zurich, Paris, London, and Weimar. He has led hundreds of people in community dance and choreographed and performed Yiddish dance flash mobs in Krakow, Paris, and Weimar. Stephen now lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and in 2016 choreographed and performed an evening-length new Yiddish dance theater piece, Gilgul, Transformations for Festival Week at Yiddish Summer Weimar. His website is Stephen with a V, Steven, Lee Weintraub. And here he is, Stephen Weintraub.
Hold on. I'm gonna plug.
Thank you.
Yeah, hold on just a moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve, and it's great to see what a wonderful performance. And can you tell us a little about the music that you were dancing to just now?
Yiddish art of dancers and other kinds. His theory was that the Jewish line, because it makes sense in the art. I see it in, and I think it just gives a real nice time. That tension, that tension between ecstasy and longing, as I like to call it.
So you've worked with so many dancers and so many people from all over the place, and you've worked all over the world. Can you tell us any, highlights or special memories from some of your travels around the world?
Wow. Yeah, well, I for about 10 years, I was teaching Yiddish dance to mostly Polish people in Krakow at their dance festival. And by doing things in a context. For instance, there's a square dance called a share. And